welcome to the stream. How's everybody doing? Doing good? Let me turn this music down just a little bit. Get started. There we go. That's a little bit better. Let me know if the music's still too loud. I can turn it down a little bit more if that's necessary. Oh yeah, you've never used sidekicks? Yeah, it's in the Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. I've used them right when they came out. They're really, really useful. I like them. They're sort of like half a PC, almost. They're not quite as powerful, but they get to do some fun and interesting things. They're really useful for like solo RPGs or running like duet, like one DM, one player, or anytime that you need to sort of like fill out maybe a party. You only have like 2 players, and you want like somebody a sidekick in there specifically to heal or something like that. They're really useful. I really enjoy them. I've also used them as instead of using the Rangers, the Beastmaster Rangers beasts, because those beasts are awful the way they wrote them, as they usually are in every edition of D&D. So I was using a sidekick instead, because the sidekicks level up with the PCs, so they make more sense. And then you just adjust combats, encounters by assuming there's an extra PC in the party. So they're very simple to run. How is everything going? How's everybody? Yeah, it's sort of like running a DM PC, and I've done that too, especially doing like the solo sort of duet games. I try to definitely have them in the back seat, right? They're definitely there for like whoever the main players are to sort of like bounce ideas off of, but not to be like, hey, as babysitters or anything like that for the party. That's definitely not what I want to do. And I always make sure that if I'm running sort of like a DM PC or a sidekick or something like that, that they also have bad ideas. And they have imperfect knowledge. So if the players ask them for an opinion, sometimes, based off the character and what I think that they would know, they'll give their opinion, which is not right. They're not prescient. They don't know everything. Yeah. All right, they're more useful than Krillin. They can actually do things, except die. They do that too, but they're more useful than Krillin. For sure. So yeah, for today's stream, we're going to jump back in. So this is actually technically the 4th episode of the adventure. Episodes 1 and 2 were sort of setting up everything. So episode 1 was setting up sort of the world and getting that done. Sort of our sandbox that we'll play in. And actually, I'll go ahead and hop over. Since I'm talking about it, hop over and actually show what that looks like. There we go, get that tweet out for any stragglers while we're kind of talking about stuff. And then let me switch over so you guys can actually see what I'm saying. Over here. There we go. So yeah, on the left there we have the sandbox that we kind of created in our first episode. Just to kind of start off, every hex here is what I call a league hex, which represents about an hour of travel, which is sort of what we're using it for. And then if we move the bar over, we have over here, and these are just kind of, so I did sort of a like Russian nesting doll style, so I kind of know what the area is outside of like the specific sandbox, if that makes sense. So we've drilled down. So these Atlas hexes are much larger. They're about 400 miles across, and then the regions are about what are they, like 60, about 70 miles across. And then it just kind of drills all the way down until we get to those like league-sized 1-hour hexes. Yeah, let me know if you guys have done the solo RPG thing before. It was definitely something that I came to kind of late. I just kind of started doing it for the first time, I guess, about late last year. and really enjoyed it. You know, I found some YouTube people talking about it in gaming, and I kind of bounced off of it back and forth because most of the systems use like very simplified systems, which I didn't think, and they seem very random, and I didn't really like that as much. But then I found some more resources to make a more sort of not collaborative, but more normal sort of D&D kind of feeling. Like it's got a stronger narrative, and there's reasons it's not just random hex exploration, which I think that's kind of hard to build like a story around the character to do. But I found some resources that allowed me to sort of do that. And so then I kind of took it off, and then I was having a whole bunch of fun with it. I've done a few different characters and different adventures and really enjoyed it. And I thought, oh, well, I might as well stream it. I mean, it seems like there are a lot of people that are sort of interested in sort of doing this and kind of getting into it. So I thought I'd kind of jump in and kind of show people what it's about. So in the first episode, we sort of set up the world. In the second episode, we set up our player character, that's Leah right here on the right. And I decided for this adventure specifically to go in. Exactly. I thought specifically to sort of go in with a 0 level character. So Leah's a 0 level character right now. So she has one cantrip that she has for being a high elf, and that's basically her only attack. On top of that, she is able, because she's an elf, she's able to use long swords, short swords, longbows, and short bows, so that's very useful. But she doesn't know how to use any armor. She doesn't have any other cantrips other than her one firebolt cantrip. And she has a whopping 8 hit points. So AC 11, 8 hit points. She can maybe take a shot before she gets knocked unconscious. And we built up the background with her, and having she has that sage background, so she has we built up a background around her being on this research team, and then her being sort of a disgraced academic, and now she got a letter from the librarian at her old academy, and she showed up to talk to him about their research, and found out that he was dead. That he had committed suicide. So sometime in between sending the letter to her and her arriving at the place, he died. And so she's trying to figure out what's going on with that. And so to do that, she's decided to go out and reach out to some of her old research team members and see if maybe the librarian had reached out to them as well, or if they have some sort of insight into it. So we have Leah, and because she's kind of out on her own, and obviously as a 0 level character, she's just basically commoner plus, so she has good stats compared to commoners, but otherwise she's basically just a regular person. So yeah, it was generated through rolling. We used the Xanthos guide, This Is Your Life, and did that, and then used some random roll tables and kind of figured things out, and then I just kind of glued all the pieces together. Just kind of came up with it iteratively. So as she's decided to kind of go out and learn more about this and figured out, she knew that basically she's a commoner, so she's going to need some help. And so she hired Ott, which was a person that she knew beforehand. Part of her background is she was basically a hireling for adventurers for a short time. And so Ott was another hireling that she knew. Yeah, the books have lots of good information in there. They're not super great at always telling you all the good stuff that's in there. You kind of have to go dig for it. But yeah, Ott, so she's a gnoll hunter, and she's a sidekick, and she's an expert type of sidekick, which means she's very sort of skill focused. And sort of in the D&D 1, they have these expert classes, so they were kind of it's very clear that they were using the sidekicks as sort of a testing ground to see how that would go for D&D 1, because they definitely have the expert classes, which include like Rogue and Bard and something else that I can't think of off the top of my head, where they're sort of like skill monkey based characters. So Ott's a Gnoll, she's pretty big, she's pretty bad, but she did get rocked in their first combat. She got rocked pretty hard. But otherwise, she's certainly much more combat and combat and skill focused than Leah is. Leah's definitely sort of more of the intelligence side and sort of the charisma side, but she doesn't really have great charisma. Let's see. Yeah, so that's sort of her. So she hired Ott on as a guide to sort of like get her to her destination safely. And then the third episode, we actually started the actual play. So we introduced that Leah and Ott are on their way. On the left here, you can see I have the hex highlighted. Split Valley Oasis, which is a trading post. It's kind of out on the marches, kind of out on the frontier. And so they were going out there. They while they were going towards the Oasis, they came across an abandoned, what they thought was an abandoned shack. They decided to investigate it. There were some mud mephits. They really screwed up Ott pretty badly. There was just 2 of them, but they rolled really well. Got a natural 20 on her. But Leah and Ott were able to sort of get that done with. And as they were mucking around, they found out that the occupant was dead in the house. But they did get a magic item out of it, which I think is on Leah's character sheet. So they got right down here, the Horn of Silent Alarm. I don't think you guys can see that. Over here, so you guys can see it. Down here at the bottom is the Horn of Silent Alarm. The big fat head was in the way. So the Horn of Silent Alarm is basically works sort of like the alarm spell, but it's only for one person. You blow the horn and it notifies one person. So basically the home they were in was a potter, and that potter, I guess, was kind of using it. They had it sort of on a peg, and they were using it kind of as a doorbell for if they were out like gathering clay or something from the nearby water. They could hear it. They'd hear somebody, showing up at their house. So they did that. They got their way in. They got some rooms at a place called Nantumber, which is a caravanserai, which is basically a very fancy word for kind of a trader's inn. So it's kind of got a central courtyard, and then sort of it's kind of got a motel kind of feel to it. And then they started asking around because they're looking for Omer, which is one of Leah's old research teammates. And so they asked around, they talked to some of the NPCs, and they finally got a read on Omer. He was at the trading post with his patron, an elf named Azaki, who's a plantation owner. And on the hex map over here, it's over here, right? That's not supposed to be a card, that's Azaki. It's Azaki Leiden's rice plantation. And Azaki's sort of like the big man on campus around here, so he sort of owns the town, basically. And the reason is because this central area where we have our little dragon's head, there is this persistent, bizarre storm that's kind of shown up in the middle of the oasis, in the middle of this large lake, and it's kind of wreaking havoc on everything, on travel that's going by, because most people, right, this is a very large lake, so people getting across it have to basically row boats or sail across it, which is much faster than walking all the way around it. But having this sort of violent, persistent storm in the middle is wreaking havoc on it. So Omer was hired to sort of check it out because he has a background in sort of elementals and primordial. So he's doing research on that. And then Leah also has that background as well. And so as she sort of met up with Omer, Omer sort of cajoled his boss into also hiring her on, and Ott. And so they have sort of gotten wrapped up in this to kind of take a look at it, and then after they're going to take a look, they're going to talk about the dead librarian and their old research, and maybe get some clues as to what's happening there. And that kind of brings us up to kind of where we are now. I'm sure that sounds like that's a lot of info. This probably sounds like to process. If you're interested in doing that, if you're interested in like catching up, we have some of the video on the bands are still in Twitch. If not, you can head over to YouTube. It's Red Ragged Fiend over there as well. And I've got the first 3 sessions uploaded, so you can watch those if you want. You can figure out everything that's going on and get full up to speed. But it's not necessary. I mean, the big thing you need to know is the reason why they're here, which is to find out information about the dead librarian and talk to Omer. And now they're having to deal with this persistent storm because that's what they've been hired to do. And so we're going to pick up right now with the 3 of them. That's Omer, Ott, and Leah, kind of walking down with their new sort of research gear and loading it into the rowboat on the shore so they can row out into the lake to get a closer look at this violent storm that's sort of stuck in the middle of the oasis. Pull up my notes real quick. Okay. So yeah, so this is all our stuff that we're kind of talking about. And here's where we are right now. Let's see, is there anything else I need to talk about before we jump in and get started? Of course, if you guys like the stream, give me a follow. That way you'll get notified whenever I do new streams. The big sort of solo RPG stream is right now. It's every Sunday that we're working on that. I also tend to do some streams sometimes during the weekdays on the evenings. Those are kind of improvised, so I don't always know when they're going to show up. So if you're interested in catching one of those where I do things other than specifically the solo RPG, I talk about other D&D stuff and all sorts of stuff like that, then the easiest way to do that is get the follow, and then you'll get the notifications whenever I'm going to go live, because those aren't always scheduled. Anything else? Oh, right, I can talk about the thing. So if you look at the banner down here, which way? This way. Looking down at the banner here, I also have a blog where I talk about D&D and RPG stuff. I've been doing that for over a decade, so lots of good stuff in there. But primarily focused on running games, being the DM, but also plenty of player stuff and talking about sort of the industry and state of RPGs. It's all full in there. We have a big world building series, which a lot of that went into. A lot of that effort has gone into sort of building the sandbox and the characters and all that stuff. So if you want to get more knowledge about like how to do that for your own games, whether that's playing by yourself or running for a group, that's a really great resource to go check out. Also, I have Twitter. You can check me out there, talk about things, and I also have some items up on Drive Through RPG. Those are always pay what you want, so you can take them for free, or if you want to give me a few dollars, that's always appreciated, and you can drop that in at whatever you can pay is always great. And that's sort of my philosophy about specifically RPG sort of content, is that I understand, I too was a broke college student once and wasn't able to really afford things, and D&D can be a very expensive hobby, but it can also be a very inexpensive hobby. You can use the basic rules and free resources and be able to do it with your friends for almost no money. And I don't think that the hobby should be gatekept necessarily by income. That's just sort of my personal preference about it. Alright, with that all said and done, let's go ahead and jump into the game proper. So they're all sort of on the shore right now, and Ott has been sort of hired in by Omer to sort of carry this all this gear that he just bought at the trading post on Azaki's dime. So they're loading that into the rowboat, and Leah's just trying to get some clarification questions about, kind of what's going on. So what is the nature of the storm itself? Like, what do you know about it already, Omer? And Omer kind of talks about, it showed up about a month ago, just kind of out of the blue. I don't really know the specifics about things. And then, Izaki sort of reached out to me and kind of brought me in sort of with my background. I didn't share sort of our previous issues with research. Kind of kept that on the down low for obvious reasons. And pretty much I've been waiting on some of this research gear to get here so I can get a better look at it. There's a lot of kind of pressure coming in about this from multiple sides. So Azaki's main concern is that you heard him talking in the trading post. His main concern is that we need to get the storm taken care of because it's time for him to plant fields, and the storm's gonna wreck those fields, and then he's gonna lose the harvest, and well, that's obviously a problem for him. On top of that, we have I'm forgetting names of NPCs. We have Norkruth, who apparently you met at the inn. He wants to capture it. I don't think that's a good idea. We don't know exactly what this is, and you have enough research, Leah. You have enough background to know that capturing and trying to contain an elemental, especially an upset elemental, is probably a very bad idea. And Leah kind of nods. Yep. That would be a very bad idea, dude. And we also have myself. My main concern is that this what we're assuming is an elemental or primordial or whatever it is gets moved. We're going to relocate it, hopefully so I can study it further. We can figure out what's going on with it. If it's sick or injured or something like that, we can maybe take care of that, and try to bring it back in tune with the surroundings and understand more about what went wrong, why, and what we can do to sort of prevent these sort of problems in the future. And Leah kind of nods, as somebody who's also from that sort of academic background and understanding about elementals, and their sort of perspective on it is the elementals are sort of like having an animal or a group of a herd of animals that's a problem, right? You can either kill all the animals or you just kind of relocate them and then try to tag them and research them and learn more about them, which as academics that's sort of their prime motivation. But Ott, her main job here is to row the boat, because she's not going to be any good with sort of the research and the observation instruments that they're going to use. So it's up to Ott to sort of like row it out there, and as we can see sort of like on the hex map there, so the trading post is here, and they need to get towards the middle. So that's going to be about I'd say about an hour and a half rowboat, which is what they have. They don't have a sailboat, they have a rowboat. So she's going to have to do that. So let's go ahead, and I think that's just going to be a straight up Constitution save, honestly. So let's get that from Ott real quick. Well, Constitution is not too bad. And I guess technically this would be no, this is going to be a save, because she could definitely get, and if she fails, she's going to get exhaustion. That's sort of the big thing. Now, I'm using physical dice as I'm cleaning up. As you can see, I have a bunch of documents kind of set up, and I'm still sort of compiling that to make these easier. I'd like to be able to bring the dice online and use that without having to flip through a whole bunch of screens and do all that. But for right now, I'm just going to use the physical dice until I get that all sorted. Slowly but surely, right? Alright, so 1d20 plus 1. Alright, well that's a 5. So, and I think that has to deal a lot with the storm. Like, the storm is causing waves, persistent waves to sort of, and they're trying to head directly into those waves. And she is just, like, that's just going to tire her out immediately. So she's definitely going to take a level of fatigue. She's going to take an exhaustion level. We'll put that over here. We're going to put that over here. So Ott 1, so she has level 1 exhaustion. And level 1 exhaustion, of course, means that she has disadvantage on all ability checks, but not attacks and saves, um, which is good because she got wrecked pretty hard in her last fight, and I don't think that having disadvantage in a fight for attacks and saves would do her any good. So they're going to kind of come in close, and Ott is, just full tuckered out, and she's just kind of moves to the back of the boat, and the back of the boat kind of shifts as she moves there, because she's significantly heavier than both Leah and Omer, being basically a 7-foot tall wall of muscle. And then it's up to sort of Leah and Omer, who have these sort of arcane instruments that they're using to sort of be sort of what you would imagine from like contemporary, like modern weather chasers. Like they have a bunch of weird instruments that gather wind speed and waves and barometers and things of that nature to try to figure out the humidity and what all this means and fluctuations and all that stuff. So they're going to spend some time doing that. So I'm going to give them a little skill check. I'm just going to make it 3 checks. So they're going to make 3 checks. Let me go ahead and write this down. So they're going to make 3 checks. And let me set the DCs for that real quick. I use a little 3d6 DC creator to just sort of improvise DCs on the fly. If you want information about that, that's all this and many more stuff is what's on the blog at redraggedfiend.com. Oh, that's really good. Alright, so yeah, this is clearly something, either they have the right instruments, or maybe it's that Omer's particularly knowledgeable in it, because they only need to hit a DC 9 to get that. And I think, let's look at Leah's character sheet real quick. I think her best skill for this, I think they could do nature or arcana. So let me think. I'm gonna have them roll nature, even though that they're pretty convinced that this is an elemental or primordial thing in nature, which we could probably use arcana on, but because they're observing, I'm gonna go ahead and do a nature check instead. And I'm gonna give her advantage because she's got Omer assisting, and they're both knowledgeable in this. She has +3 to the roll, so this really shouldn't be a hard level of checks for her. Oh yeah, 12 on the die, no problem. And the second check, natural 20, even better. I'm not even gonna make the third check since she got a natural 20. Yeah, I think that Leah, they're first like doing the readings, and they've got this sort of like magic meter that's telling them, oh yeah, this is definitely not a natural storm. There's something weird kind of going on here. And as they investigate it more, Leah's like, oh yeah, no, I think I know. With that natural 20, Leah kind of goes through her own sort of memory banks in her mind. Is like, oh, I know. She's like, I know what this is. I think, but the circumstances don't quite make sense. All the readings that we're getting would lead me to believe it's a water myrmidon, which is a elemental construct. But it seems something is clearly wrong with it, and it doesn't seem as potent as it should be. Because, I mean, you know, Omer, you know that elemental myrmidons are just wildly destructive forces. And the storm is certainly destructive, but it's not that destructive. If this was a truly enraged Myrmidon. We would be dealing with a much bigger issue with it. We would have a lot of dead people. The entire trading post might be wrecked. Something's definitely wrong. So I think at this point we need to assess from Omer, I think, whether they should get closer to the storm to get more information. And that's going to be sort of like the advice that he gives. And to do that, I'm going to do a 1d20 Oracle roll. You use Oracle rolls for solo RPGs. It gives you the ability, like, because you're only playing with yourself, to ask questions into the ether and kind of get a response. So I want to know whether Omer thinks that it's a good idea to go closer to observe more. And I think, given Omer's personality, I think that it's likely that. So it's a 1d20 roll. I'm going to give him a +3 on the roll because I think it's likely. If we roll 13 and up, it's a success. If we roll 8 and down, the answer's no. So yes or no. If we hit that 9 to 12 spot, there's something else that goes on. It's either yes or no. It's whatever we think is going to be in the PC's best interest, but there's going to be something else that goes on with it. So let's make that roll real quick for Omer. All right, that's a 4. So I know that I said that everything below 9 is a no, but when it gets to the very end in that spectrum, it becomes no and at the top of the spectrum it does yes and. So the answer is no and. So we have a little sheet here, and this is one of the resources that I definitely want to bring online so we can all look at it at the same time. I just haven't had an opportunity to sort of do that. And I may actually change this. This is from the GM emulator, which is a system that helps you basically run solo RPGs, and it's system neutral that you can pick up. And it has these sort of random event meanings that you can use to sort of build an interpretation off of the rolls. But I want to know who it affects first. And so I need a d6 roll for that. 5. Okay, so there is an intrusive or disruptive event. So as they're sort of discussing this, something happens. And then these tables are 2 D100 tables. And doing that will tell us both the action that's happening in that scene and the subject of that scene. So let's roll our percentile dice. 73. Propose. Okay. Propose what? 82. Propose dispute. Now, what would that mean? Propose dispute. From Omer. Okay, I think Leah and Omer just get into it. I think that Omer is adamantly no, and Leah's basically calling him a coward, bringing in his credibility as a researcher. Leah, if you've watched the very beginning, as we were coming up with Leah's character, Leah can be a very sort of brusque kind of person. She doesn't mince a lot of words, and she takes herself and what she does very seriously. And if Omer's standing in her way of getting to the source of what this problem is, because sort of at this point, like she's shifted into academic gear, and she's like, I have to learn this, I have to know everything about it and get to the bottom of it so I can understand it. And then Omer's like, we should head back, and regroup and figure out what we're going to do next. And they're kind of getting into it, and I think that's the point where Odd kind of steps in. I think, actually, I don't know. Odd doesn't probably care, but Odd is tired, so she probably doesn't want to necessarily fight. but Ada is way more rash than the other two. So I'm just going to give her a flat d20 roll. So this isn't necessarily an oracle roll, because this is already a disruptive event, and I don't want anything else on top of that to complicate it. If we roll high, she's just got to take the oars and move them closer to the storm. If not, she's going to move them away from the storm. Well, that's a 16, so we're kind of pushes the two sort of squabbling academics out of the way and just like grabs the oars again and just sort of puts her back into it and starts rowing them towards it. And Omer's just sort of freaking out, being like, no, don't go any closer. This is really dangerous. It's like, shut up. Keep going on. So we're going to drag them even closer. At some point, this will become dangerous, but at this, I think, alright, one question I do want to know the answer to, and again, I don't want sort of a disruptive event, I just want to see if they have this. Do they have a spyglass or anything that will give them a better ability to sort of like perceive what they're looking at, or do they have to get very close, like into very dangerous territory? Okay, so the answer was no there. So they don't have the spyglass, so they do have to get closer. And I think Leah at this point is all the way in the bow of the boat, kind of leaning over, squinting, and trying to look the best that she can. Because as they get closer, like the waves are getting more and more choppy. It's sort of swirling. The storm is swirling around, like rain is starting to pelt them. So getting in there, sort of lashes of rain. And I think Omer is in there as well, but I don't think he's going to be much help here. So Leah's just going to make a very, very basic perception check to see if she can make out anything. As far as source goes. And she has a +1. She actually has a negative wisdom score, which kind of makes sense with sort of the way that she acts. Oh, well, that's not very good. That's going to be a total of 9. I'll roll to see what the DC is, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be higher than 9. It is. No doubt. So she definitely fails, and I think because of that fail, they are going to get upended by the creature that's at the center of this storm. I think this storm, like, they pass through whatever that proximity threshold is, and they draw, to put in MMO terms, they draw aggro, right? They draw aggro because they get too close. And this thing, which I have stats for, this little custom creature that I made up, figuring out that they would probably end up having to do something with this creature. And it is definitely going to get sort of a surprise attack on them to start off. So I think the first thing it's going to try to do is it's going to try to tump all of them out of the boat with its attack. And alright, so let's make an attack from that, and that'll sort of set the DC, I think, or a strength check from them. That'll sort of set the DC for them trying to stay in the boat. Alright, so that's a 17. So they're going to make Dexterity 17 DC saving throws to not get knocked out of the boat. So we'll do Leah first. Ooh, no. She rolled a 15. So, not for Leah. For Ott. Ooh, rolled very, very much worse. And for Omer, who's just kind of flat. He's a basic commoner. Nope, everybody's out of the boat. So, just sort of imagine seeing like Ott sitting here pulling on the rows, and the boat's basically kind of popping as it's hitting these rough, choppy waves. This rain's lashing down at them at the center of this oasis. Otherwise, pristinely clear day, right? It's very nice weather, except they are in this very small spot in which there's just this terrible storm that's raging in the center of this oasis. And so Ott's pulling on the oars, rowing as hard as she can, and she's already tired. And I didn't give her. No, it wasn't safe. She didn't have disadvantage on that. Sorry. But she failed anyways. Didn't matter. And Omer's kind of like shouting at Leah over the sounds of the storm, the thunder rumbling, the heavy rain that's lashing down on them. And Leah's like trying to concentrate, and she has like her hands over her eyes, trying to keep the rain out of her eyes, trying to squint and stare into the storm. And then this swell happens under the boat. The water swells up under the boat, and the boat just kind of throws over, and the three of them go pitched, and all the research equipment goes flying out of the boat. And they're into these, into the lake, into the drink. So they're swimming. Now, thankfully, let me double check. I don't think Ott has heavy armor on. No, she has leather armor on. So nobody's wearing heavy armor, so the likelihood of them drowning is pretty minimal. But they are now in the water with whatever it is that attacked them. And I think at this point we'll go ahead and roll initiative. So we have... Let me pull this over here. So we've got Ott and Leah, and we're just going to put bad stuff right now because we don't know exactly what that is. Or they don't know exactly what it is. And bad stuff. So for bad guys, I tend to use passive initiative, so they just get 10 plus their initiative bonus, which will give them a 12. So our bad stuff goes on 12. All right, we've got Ott up first. All right, Ott's going low, going under that. How about Leah? Also under that, and Omer. So Omer rolls a natural 20 for initiative, and I'm sure he's just gonna bug out. He's probably gonna swim for his life. Okay, so Omer's at the top. Yeah, I'll just copy him. And then we can take care of these checks because we did that. All right, and we don't need these numbers anymore. So Ott, yeah, Leah rolled worse than Ott. So that's sort of where we are. And I am going to make Ott have to do swim checks because she is exhausted. Now the DC for that's going to be extraordinarily low. For her to just basically tread water or float. So not difficult. The only reason she's having to make the checks at all is because she's already exhausted. The DC is going to be, I think, for right now, probably as long as she doesn't roll a natural one, I'm going to say that she swims okay. Until something else happens to her that makes swimming more difficult. So yeah, I think Omer... So everybody goes in the drink. Omer's like bursts out or like hacking on water that he took in as he got dumped over out of the boat, and he starts, I think, swimming for the boat. That's what he's gonna do. He's gonna swim over to the boat. Okay, then we have bad stuff. So who's bad stuff gonna go after? So 1, 2, 3. All right, that's 3. So going after Leah. So this thing kind of, and like Leah can see it coming at her, right? It's definitely got sort of that shark kind of vibe to it. Like you can see this sort of mound in the water that's moving closer and closer and closer. It's got that darna. As it moves closer and closer and closer, and then it breaks through in the water, and it is not a fish. It is this, because it's basically plate armor that kind of shoots out of the water. If you imagine a suit of plate armor that's also filled with water, magical water, because it's an elemental, as they had already sort of figured out at that point. And it is, in fact, a water myrmidon. So we can go ahead and place the name. But even just basically, once Lee is able to put her eyes on the thing, she can tell that this thing is corrupted. There's something wildly wrong with the enchantment. By the way it moves, it definitely seems weaker than it should be. I say that, but now it's going to attack Leah. Alright, so we'll give an attack on Leah. Oh, wow. I actually did not hit. I rolled a 5. Plus their bonus is not 11, so so we see this sort of plate armor thing like rise out of the water, and then next to it rises up, this hand with a trident in it, and this trident tries to poke her, and she sort of dodges out of the way. But it's not just that; it's not just a trident. It's that she can see, like, as it's being brought out of the water, you can see like frost sort of developing, like that sound of like crackling of ice around the trident. You can see it sort of like freeze a little bit of the water where it's coming out, and tries to stab it. You can see like these cool vapors just kind of coming off of it, but fortunately missed. But that does bring us to Ott. Ott's in the drink. I don't think it makes sense to shoot a bow while you're in the water. I don't think that's going to be really possible. So I think that she's going to kind of go with her spear. She's going to grab her spear and sort of like swim over and try to stab this thing. And so that's what she's going to do. She gets 2 attacks. So we've got 2d20. See if she hits. We have to hit AC 16. Because this plate armor, looking at it, like it's rusted in spots. It's got a patina. It's got like barnacles and things of that nature on it. It's got algae, and it looks cracked and dented and damaged. Like it's not a full like AC 18 plate. 1 miss, but 1 hit. So she tags it once with her spear for 5 points of damage. But she goes in and she kind of goes and stabs this thing, stabs this water elemental, and there's like this scraping of metal on metal, and then it passes through and it gets into the water. But even at this point, like, as Ott stabs to that water, she can tell that it doesn't do as much damage as it should. Which, of course, the elemental has resistance to BSP damage, so bludgeoning, slashing, piercing damage. Alright, so it goes from... And actually, I'll keep track of the hit points up here. We're not that worried. We're playing by ourselves, so we don't have to worry that much about making sure that we hide things like hit points from ourselves. We don't have to do that. So this Myrmidon has 22 hit points, but lost 2 of them, so now is at 20. This is a tough enemy. I was not expecting us to have to fight this right off, but the dice do what the dice do, and now we're in it. Hopefully we're gonna get away, or we're gonna defeat this thing, and hopefully, they just don't die. That would be kind of an awful start to our adventure. It may be an Omer adventure at that point. But I like Leah, and I hope Leah and Ott make it through this. Speaking of, I need to make Ott's check for swimming. A 5, that's fine. We just said not a natural 1, so she's good. And it's Leah's turn. Leah basically has 1 attack, so she's going to firebolt, and her bonus for that is 5. Yeah. So she's gonna make a roll. She's gonna try to hit this with a bolt of fire. She sort of like reaches out her finger, she has her staff, and she's still kind of like treading water, and she kind of points at it, tries to shoot off this line of fire at it. Oh yeah, 16 on the die, no doubt. She definitely hits it. And being magic, it is in fact not resistant to it, which is good. Alright, for another 4 points of damage, and this does not get halved, so that's good. So we're down to 16. Alright, Omer. Omer's swimming for the boat. I think Omer reaches the boat. So a question we should ask ourselves is, does Omer have any sort of weapons on him? And the boat's upside down at this point, so we'll try to see, does Omer have anything in which he can sort of contribute to the fight? So we're going to do an oracle check real quick for Omer. Okay, wow. that is a 19 on the die, which we know is yes, and we know that's yes and. So we know that there's going to be something good that comes out of that. So let's make the rolls real quick, and if not, we'll come up with something good. Sometimes these tables don't make a ton of sense. Like you'll get things that don't make sense, and you're just like, yeah, forget it. Or you'll make something up. Point. Alright, an intrusive or disruptive event again. Interesting. Alright, so we're out here. They're out in the lake. They're fighting for their lives against this corrupted water elemental. Ooh, 99. Oppress. Oh, oppress emotions. Alright, yeah. So I think Omer has... a scroll of calm emotions. So really the question is, alright, that's a very potent thing for something like this. That's incredibly good. It's an incredible stroke of luck. Now the question is, can Omer use it? And I think that's unlikely. I think that Leah can use it, because our idea when we knew building Leah that she was probably going to end up as either a wizard or an artificer. So she should be able to cast Calm Emotions. She should know enough about it that I think if we give her the scroll, she should be able to cast it. I may make her make a check to do it. But, so really we just want to know yes or no. We're not gonna deal with any other sort of disruptive events. But can Omer cast this? That's a 2. Absolutely not. I don't know why he has the scroll. Like, he thought he would be able to cast it or something, maybe. And maybe that's what happens. Maybe he grabs, he sees the scroll case kind of floating in these big waves, right? And he, sees it and he grabs it and he has, one arm sort of on the boat and he sort of, pulls it open with his mouth and, pulls out the parchments. Tries to cast a spell, and it definitely doesn't work. And it definitely doesn't work. And so he's like, crap. So I think he shouts for Leah to, come help him. And so that's what he's going to do on his turn. The Myrmidon is directly in melee combat with Ott, so I think it's going to continue attacking Ott. Let's see if it recharges its icy ability. It does not. Whew, good. So it's just going to make this one attack against Ott with its trident. Ooh, that's a 19 on the die. Definitely going to hit. Sorry, Ott. Hey, but minimum damage. That's always nice. So that's only 4 points of damage to Ott, so we'll do that real quick. Ott has 22 hit points because she's still got rocked from the last time. She doesn't have any hit dice left. And what did I say? 4 points of damage. Okay, so she's at 18. So she's okay. She's alright. And then it is Ott's turn. Well, is the Myrmidon going to do anything else? I don't think so. It doesn't have any other special abilities to do anything with, so I think it's just going to continue. So, Myrmidon's done. It is Ott's turn. Ott's going to make her 2 attacks with her spear, and then we'll see how well. Oh no, I lost my die. Come here. Got it. Alright, 2 attacks. Ooh, that 4's not going to hit, but the 13 will, for sure. So she's going to hit it again with her spear, even though she doesn't do great damage because it's resistant to the damage. For 3 plus 2, 5, so another 2 points of damage. So, just kind of chipping away at it right now. Just kind of surviving. And we need to make a check for Ott to make sure she can still swim. Rolled another 5 on her ability check with disadvantage. So she's struggling, right? I mean, it's not easy. She's in a fight and she's swimming in its rough waters. And she's tired, right? But she's keeping her head above water, and sort of the adrenaline's sort of powering her through it. All right. Let's see. Can Liam make it to the boat in one turn? Probably. I think so. I think that's reasonable. They just got dumped out, and she hasn't really moved. She's just been treading water. So yeah, I think she moves over to Omer and grabs the scroll, and she will attempt to cast Calm Emotions on this Myrmidon. So let's set a DC for the spell that she's going to have to make an Arcana check to sort of do. Okay. All right, so she needs to roll a 16 or better. So needs to roll a DC 16. Omer's not going to be any help. She's not going to have any other bonuses except her own bonuses, which, are not nothing. So she's got a +3 intelligence, and she's trained in Arcana, so she gets a +5 to the roll. So she needs to roll at least an 11. She does not. So she's fumbling with the scroll, and she's trying to get it out, but I mean, she's bobbing in the water. She's also kind of holding onto the boat, trying to read this parchment, and also try to keep it out of the water, try to keep it from getting wet. It's not that big of a deal because it's, by its nature, it's magical, so it's not going to be destroyed by the water. But it will get wet, and using wet paper is not very helpful, right? It's really difficult to sort of manage. So she'll have to try that again on her next turn. She doesn't have any sort of specific bonus action she can do. So that's just that's what it's going to be for right now. It's all the way back up to the top. So we found out that Omer had that. Would Omer have any other sort of weapon on him as just sort of a commoner? The commoner stat block has a club. I don't think Omer's going to get anywhere near that thing and try to attack it with a club. He didn't even want to get this close to it, right? I think Omer's going to spend his turn. He's going to try to flip the boat back over, I think, is probably what he's going to do. So I'm going to give him a strength check. He's a commoner, so you got +0 to it. This is pretty difficult. I don't know if you guys have ever tried to flip a boat over while you're in the water. It's not super easy. It's actually kind of difficult. So I think I'm not going to make up a random DC. I think it's just going to be a straight up DC 15 strength check that he has to make. And he has a +0, so he's got to roll 15 or better. No, that's a 4. I think we figured out Omer's maybe not a very outdoorsy kind of person. So he's struggling, trying to put himself over the boat and grab the edge and kind of use his weight to pull it back over. And he's just kind of kicking his legs out of the water, just kind of flopping around, unsuccessfully. All right, that'll bring us to our water Myrmidon. It has a target, which is Ott. It will surprisingly miss Ott by 1. Yep, by 1. Because Ott's AC is 13, right? Yes. Okay, rolled a 12. Good. Ott's gonna do her 2 attacks again. She's in there just basically holding it off until it seems like Leah can get the spell off from the scroll. Miss with 1, hit with the other. Hey, half. That's going to be 3 points of damage this time. So, nice. So she's just kind of chipping away at this thing, slowly but surely, just trying to. And again, the other 2 don't want to kill this thing, but, Ott's out there fighting for her life. She's going to do whatever she's got to do to survive. And we need to make her a swim check. Oh, that's a 2. That's very close, but it's not a 1. So she can feel sort of the soreness building up in her muscles, and she's out of breath, and she's got a mouth full of water. She's, just trying to stay in it and trying not to die. And then that brings us to Leah. Leah knows what she has to do. She has a +5 on this check. She has to roll an 11. She rolls an 11. Charm motion goes off. She's doing better though. That's a 9 on the die, so she's still trying to read and kind of come to terms with it. Remember, at this point, Leah's not really a spellcaster. She has a little bit of magic from sort of her elven heritage, but she's not. And she has an academic understanding of magic and like how it works and what it does. But she does not. She is not a full-fledged wizard at this point. So unfortunately, she doesn't quite get it off, but she's closer. Like she's reading it, and you can start to see like the magic start to build, like in her hands, as she's making the motions and reading off the scroll. But it does not go off. So we're back at the top, and that's Omer. Omer's going to try to flip over this boat again. What is that? Wow, seriously, Omer? Another natural 20 from Omer. Right. Talk about somebody who's got the adrenaline pumping. He's in fight or flight mode, and he's like, he grabs his boat and flips it all the way over. I think he sort of scrambles into it. I mean, the oars aren't going to be in the rowboat, but he's definitely out of the water, and I think that will be helpful. I think he's going to reach over and try to hold out his hand and try to get Leah back in the boat. Like, come on, let's go. Myrmidon's turn. Myrmidon's going to do... Well, let's see if they recharge their power. They do not. So they're going to go after Odd again. Oh, good. 3 on the die. That's total miss. Awesome. So this thing's just kind of jabbing at Ott with its trident, and Ott sort of like fighting it off with the spear. But I mean, she's haggard. She's tired. She's doing her best. As she's trying to stay afloat and attack this thing. This sort of like unnatural, you know, it's untiring. Like it's a numbers game at this point, right? Ott knows if it was one-on-one swimming in this lake, like she's gonna die unless something changes. And that's up to Leah. Like Leah has to make that change. She has to be the one that's going to change the battlefield, turn the tide. But it is Ott's turn. She's going to make her 2 attacks. She's going to put in the work. It's 1 terrible roll and 1 good roll. Alright, another 3 points of damage. Just chipping away at this thing. Alright, so down to 8 hit points. Now the question is, the Myrmidon's past half HP. On its turn, I'm going to have to remember that it's going to try to make... Well, it's an elemental. You know what, I'm going to deal with that on its turn. I'm not going to slow things down right now. Because it may not make any difference. Because it is Leah's turn. Leah, I think, will grab Omer's hand and sort of like get pulled into the boat, you know, sopping wet in sort of her robes. And she's going to try to read this thing off again. She's going to try to get this spell scroll off. Let's see what it rolled. No, she did basically the same. So she's still trying. That brings us to Omer. What is Omer going to do? So he's in the boat. He doesn't really have any weapons going to work. Well, no, and Leah doesn't have one that he could use. I think he's going to try to collect some of the floating stuff, especially oars, if he can get them. Because I think their packs are gone too, because they wouldn't have been wearing their packs. They would have taken them off when they got on the boat. So I think he's going to try to grab stuff. And then I'll try to, at the end of the combat, assuming they live, we'll try to figure out what exactly he ends up grabbing. So he's going to make some basic grab checks. Should be kind of a flat d20. Alright, he rolled 14, so he's doing good. So he's grabbing gear. Just going to make a note. So he's grabbing gear, and he rolled a 14. Alright, corrupted water elemental It's its turn. I need to determine whether it is going to stay in the fight because it's at past half HP, or if self-preservation is going to kick in. Now this thing's kind of screwed up, right? It's corrupted. So I think it's going to be, I think it's unlikely I'm going to do a 1d20 oracle roll for it. I think it's unlikely. Well, do I want to do that, or do I just want to... Yeah, let's do an oracle roll. Just in case, because maybe something else happens in the scene, which could be interesting. Kind of ratchet up the tension, maybe. Even though things are pretty tense, I mean, it still very much could go either way with this fight. MVP ought just, like, hacking away at this thing, and somehow not taking a lot of damage in doing it. So it's going to make 1d20 roll. I think it's unlikely, so it has a -3 to the roll. And we'll see what we come up with. If it's going to flee. Will it flee? Alright, I rolled a 12, 11, 10, 9. So still sort of in that mid place. So as we said, usually we go with whatever's the best for the PC in that range. And I think the best thing for them is that, right, Omer's goal is to sort of drive this thing away. He hasn't had anything to tag it yet, or any way to sort of like follow up on it. But his job is to get rid of this thing, and making it flee is getting rid of it, at least for the short term. We don't know where this thing's going to go. So, with that being the case, let's roll to see what happens, because the PC's benefit, depending on what the other parts of the scene are, we'll have to figure that out. Whether that's going to be what's actually going to be in the PC's interest. Alright, 3. NPC. Alright, well, we only have one NPC in the scene, because I consider sidekicks to be PCs. For this instance, for rolling on these tables. Okay. Let's look at our NPCs. Like, who would make sense as an NPC? So I think it has to be somebody from Split Valley Oasis. So there's only, right now we only have 3 NPCs in Split Valley Oasis, so let's find out which one it is. Alright. It's Omer. So whatever's going to happen is going to affect Omer. $49. Harm. That's not good. Harm masses. Okay, yeah, for sure. So I think this action is that, yes, it is going to flee. Unfortunately, I think it's gonna flee. Actually, let me roll a yes or no for its location. If I roll high, it's gonna go towards the trading post. If I roll low, it's gonna go towards the plantation. Actually, we have some other spots as well on our map that we could use. So I think there are technically 4 spots. Yeah. So there are 4 nearby locations it could go to. And if it does that, it will obviously harm the masses. So we'll roll a d4, and we'll go clockwise, starting with the first one being the trading post. Alright, I rolled a 3. So it is not the trading post, it is not the camp, it is, in fact, the plantation. So Omer, unfortunately, because basically what's going to happen is that he's going to get the blame for this. In dealing with this, and this thing is going to flee, and as it flees, the storm comes with it, and it's going to roll up right on the rice plantation. And it takes off, and it's got a swim speed. This thing hums. It moves fast. But it's going to try to exit combat, and that's what it's going to do Ott's gonna get a couple shots off as it, or gets a shot off as it moves away. It's a free attack. It's not gonna disengage. It's just fleeing. Ott will hit for minimum damage, so just 1 point of damage. Okay. So it only has 7 hit points left. And it's bugging out. It's heading west, and then it's going to head into the marshes. And it's dragging with it this gigantic storm into the fresh fields that they are just preparing to plant for with their spring rice. That's not good. That's very bad. Omer's employer is not going to be happy with it at all if this happens. So I think that they are. I think that they have to give chase. I think Omer's gonna force them to give chase at this point because like he knows where it's going. Like I mean they can see. They can see sort of the marshy sort of wetlands like rice paddies from where they are in the distance, and it's headed right for them. Okay, well this thing is significantly faster, so this is gonna do a chase, and I do have some chase information, and this is also not in some of the stuff that I prepared digitally. So this is my DM's binder. If you want more information about stuff that's on here, you can go check out the blog. It's got a lot of good information about that stuff. But one of the things I do have in here, in addition to the GM Oracle numbers, I do have a thing for chase and escapes. Now this is a transition scene. I think I'm gonna make it a 5-check scene. So they're already going to be at disadvantage because there's no way that they're going to be able to row faster than this thing. They're just trying to cut it off before it gets to where it's going to do damage. So we're going to keep all this information the same. Omer grabs some gear. I'm going to say that in that gear that he grabbed the oars because that's what they're going to need right now. They're going to drag Ott back into the boat and they're going to start hoofing it. Now Ott's really tired. So I don't think that Ott can man the oars. So somebody else is going to have to man the oars, and I guess it's going to be Leah? Because Leah technically has a +1 strength, and a +2 constitution. I think that this is going to be strength checks, rather than constitution checks. Because this is about speed. No, it'll be Constitution because they have a ways to row. So they're going to be 5 checks. So we're going to do 5 checks. And then, unfortunately, they're all at disadvantage. And I put them at disadvantage simply because the Corrupted Myrmidon has a swim speed, and it is faster than what they'll be able to row in the boat. So in chases and flights, if you are slower than the target, then you have disadvantage. It's going to be even more difficult for you to catch up with it. All right, and then let's set some DC. So instead of this, we're gonna let the Myrmidons check basically do it. And they're going to use Constitution for their checks. Alright, off to a good start. Because remember, it is hurt quite badly. Alright, and plus... Oh, sorry, that's not 10, that's 9. Okay, so starting off pretty good. Oh, I said that. Those are going to make me eat my words. Yep. So not impossible. And remember, they only need to succeed on the majority of the checks to successfully get there to basically intercept this thing before it reaches the plantation. So it's not impossible. there are some low numbers in here. But we are rolling at disadvantage. But it is Leah. And Leah has a +2. So let's see. Will she meet the first one? Yep. Alright. Actually, no, I don't need that. Success. I can deal with that other stuff. This is sort of like in the middle of a scene. Usually there's like complications and other stuff to kind of give some more flavor to this chase, but this chase is literally rowing a boat in choppy waters. There's not a lot of unexpected things that are going to jump up to stop them. Which is much different than sort of like chasing somebody through a city streets or like running through a forest and trying to chase somebody. Alright, but we've got 1 success. 1 of 3. We're doing it. If it meets, it beats. We meet. We beat. That's 2. We only need 1 more. Probably unlikely we're going to get this one. No, we didn't. Alright, so we failed. She's hauling on these oars. Leah, not a particularly... I mean, I guess she is somewhat athletic, based off of her stats, but she's definitely not a person who's proficient in athletics or acrobatics or anything like that. So she doesn't have any sort of like formal training and that sort of stuff. But clearly, she's in pretty good physical condition, right? And with her backstory, we know that makes sense. She's done plenty of marching and, you know, adventuring and stuff like that. So she's physically capable individual, even if she's not, you know, as good as maybe like a fighter or a barbarian or somebody like that would be in this sort of situation. Oh no, it's another fail. Alright. So it's all going to come down to this. It all comes down to the last roll. She's got to roll at least a 7, because she has a +2. Some extra luck. Low on it for a little extra luck. Big money, no whammies. No whammies. The low on that is 16 on the die. 16 and 17. Success. Nice. So, yeah, I mean, they sort of... This thing is, right, it's not necessarily going in a straight line. It's not necessarily trying to go towards the plantation. It's just trying to get away from these people. So it's very erratic in sort of the path it's taking, but it's kind of moving in that direction. So Leah's hauling on these oars, trying to sort of like interpose the boat, kind of herd it away from the plantation. I think that they do that. And I think they kind of push it onto, if we hop back over here, pull this over here. I think we're going to pull it, so they kind of push it up onto the marsh here where they can get onto dry land, and I think that the Myrmidon sort of pulls itself into this sort of like, it's a marsh, so it's like, what, thigh-high water? But their boat definitely sort of like hits solid ground, and they sort of clamber out of the boat again, chasing down this thing on foot. Because it still could kind of go in that direction, they're still trying to kind of get in between it. And I think at this point, because we were successful, we're going to re-enter combat again, where we were. So, where we left off was that leaving the fight, the corrupted Myrmidon was in the lead. So I think we'll go immediately to Ott, just kind of keeping the same initiative order. Ott's on land. Ott is tired, but now she's on solid ground, which means that she can pull out her bow. And so she's going to try to plug this thing with a couple of arrows. I'm going to do these one at a time. because I think there may be something that happens in between those in between those shots. So she's gonna take her first shot. Ooh, 15 on the die. That's definitely gonna hit. All right, now she's able to use the longbow. Yeah, max damage. All right, so that would be 10 damage halved to 5. So this thing's down to 2 hit points. And I think that she gets ready to take another shot. And I think Omer sort of interposes himself, sort of like or he sees that Ott's sort of going to draw the bow again, going to take another shot, and he's going to try to like push the bow, try to put it off course. So I'm just going to have him just kind of make a basic check. If he rolls high, then he does it. If he rolls low, Ott is a capable person. He just get out of the way. That's an 11, so I think that's high enough. So she's going to make this roll with disadvantages. He sort of like tries to push her and tries to keep her like, no, don't kill it, right? And it's good that he did that because I rolled a natural 20, but the other one's a 7, which is gonna miss. So she kind of draws up the shot and she goes ahead, and he's like, no, don't kill it, and sort of like pushes her, and her bow goes off course, and the arrow flies into the marsh somewhere. And of course she like snaps at him, because remember, she's a gnoll, so she just kind of turns around, like snaps at him, kind of barks at him in frustration. All right, Leah. She's still got that calm emotion scroll. She's gonna try to do it. She's gonna try to calm this emotion, try to keep it down. What's her bonus? That's gonna be close. Is that what she needed? What did I say she needed? I don't even remember. I'm trying to think of too many things. Okay, so Arcana is 3 plus 5. Ooh, no, it's one short. She rolled a 15 with her bonuses, not a 16. Oh, just off of it. Like, you can feel the magic. I think that's close enough that if this thing survives to her next turn, that I think it's going to go off. She's had enough failures that I think that it's definitely going to go off on the next turn, if they can keep it in place, and if they can keep Ott from killing it at this point. So that sort of brings us back up to the top. I think Omer's going to try to tackle this thing because he's trying to save its life. It's clearly hurt. It's trying to get away. But Ott just plugged it, which actually slows it down when she hits things with her bow. She kind of hamstrings it. So he's going to run. He's going to try to tackle this thing. I think it's just a straight up attack roll, and if he does, he'll sort of take it to the ground. No, he doesn't. So I think Omer's like, no, and he kind of runs and tries to tackle this gigantic. Gigantic. It's medium sized, but it's a full plate wearing water elemental. And I think he goes to tackle it, and it just does water elemental things where he just kind of shifts around him. He just kind of like dives through a pillar of water and hits the ground, hits the water behind them, goes face down in sort of the muck of this marsh. Not Omer's day, I guess. The corrupted water myrmidon is going to try to boogie. Now the question is its self-preservation stuff is weird. Like, it's screwed up because it's corrupted, but I don't think it's corrupted enough that it would run over land towards the plantation at this point. I think, if anything, it's going to try to get back into the water. And we do know that it's thigh-high water, so I think it just kind of melts into the water and just kind of starts swimming around. So I think they're gonna have to find it. Which let's check. So we knew. Just calm motions. Okay. So she only has to hit the area. Because it's not a specific target. So if she can hit the area where she thinks that the thing is, good. But they have to identify the area. So that's going to be Ott's primary job, or that's what she's going to ask Ott to do. Is sort of figure out where this thing is. So the Myrmidon does this thing. It's kind of basic. Fundamentally, it's invisible at this point. So Ott's gonna keep an eye on. I think Ott's actually decent in perception, right? Yeah. Alright, so she has a +3. She's gonna try to figure out where it goes. She's kind of stomping through this water, kind of finding it through the muck, and mud's up around her like ankles. No, she has no idea. So she rolled a natural 1. She's got no idea where this thing is. I think Leah at this point, like we said, that Leah was going to use the calm motion spell. So I think she looks at where the elemental was. She knows that it's trying to get away from them. So she just kind of gives her best guess. She kind of understands how fast it is now. I think she just kind of gives her best guess at about a range for the spell to go off at. And she's like, I'm going to try it. And so she successfully casts Calm Motion, and as she does, the parchment that she's got the spell scroll sort of like turns into ash in her hands as it goes off. And we're just going to do an oracle roll to figure out whether it was in that range or not. Because we don't know. We're using Theater of the Mind, so we don't know exactly, and they don't know exactly. Because it kind of disappeared on them. So is it in the radius? I don't really want to do an intrusive event here. I don't think. Or do I? No. So it's just gonna be a flat 1d20 roll. If it's high, yes. If it's low, no. All right, that's a 6. No. The spell goes off. And they have no idea whether it worked or not. So I think they keep looking around for this thing, but they've lost sort of their ace card as far as subduing this thing. And well, they have the storm around them, but the storm's very big, so it's not very indicative of like where specifically the elemental is, as far as sort of like pinpointing it. Because I was gonna try to figure out a way to give that roll advantage, but I don't think that makes sense. So yeah, I think everybody's gonna do one round. I'm gonna do a stealth check for the Myrmidon. And we're gonna have one round of them going through, seeing if they can roll high enough on their perception checks to find it. If not, this thing gets away. Okay, so the Myrmidon rolled a 13. Actually, I'm gonna give them advantage because they're fundamentally invisible at this point. Oh, that's an 18 on the die. So they have to roll a 20 or better to potentially find this thing. This thing is in the wind. For Leah, she has a +1, so if she rolls a 19, I guess. She rolled an 18, but that's not high enough. Oh, so close. Like for a moment, she like catches a movement in the marsh, but then it's gone. Yeah, I should have done Omer first. Let me do Omer. Omer also rolls an 18 on the die, but he has no bonuses. So it's up to Ott. Funny thing is, I rolled two 18s in a row. If Ott had been either of those checks, we would have found it. Because she actually has a +3. So she only needs to roll a 17. But I've rolled two 18s in a row, so I think the likelihood of me rolling a 17 or better is probably very low. Oh, it's a 15. So that's an 18 with the bonuses. So we got a 19, an 18, and an 18 for those checks. All very high perception checks. All of them just kind of a thing. So I think they see this, right? There's still the storm going on, so there's a bunch of like movement, there's a bunch of rain in the water. It's causing things, and they see things moving around in the water, whether that's right, that could be, you know, fauna, right? Some sort of like fish and frogs and snakes and that sort of stuff that's just in the marsh, as well as sort of the storm causing the water to move weirdly because of the winds and the waves. And I think at some points they do maybe catch movement that may or may not be the Myrmidon, the corrupted Myrmidon, but they search around for maybe 15 minutes and they're like, yeah, it's gone. But what we should do is we should do an oracle roll now to see if it's moved on. If it moves, if they have caused enough grief that it relocates, right? Which is the entire thing that Omer's trying to do, is relocate this thing. That's his first and primary goal. So we're going to do an oracle roll, and that will determine if that is the case or not. Alright, so a 9. So I think we're probably going to go with yes, but let's find out what the other stuff that goes with it. Okay, so it's a thread, which threads are what we call sort of like our adventure plot using the system. So there's plot thread. Really, we've only got the one that's going on right now that I think is going to be important. I mean, it could be. Let's see if there's anything else that's kind of going on, but I think those are sort of the primary important ones. Alright, so that's really the main ones. I think this is the only thread, only the current thread is the one that makes any sense. Let's roll our d4. If I roll a 3, this thread's going to end, which means we'll have accomplished the plot. That it does what we want it to do. That is indeed a 3. Okay. So let's find out some of the event meanings. But it seems like this thing is probably relocated, and we're going to end this thread here. Let's get our percentile. 8. Oppose. 68. Oppose rumors. What does that mean? Okay, I think I got it. So they've been spending a little bit of time here trying to pick this thing out, right? They've spent about 15, 20 minutes trying to search this thing out. And I think in that time, they probably see that's long enough time that you can see that the storm has shifted some. That the Myrmidon is no longer basically in the marsh. And I think as they're sort of resting up, I think they're going to take a short rest there. Um, Ott unfortunately has no hit dice to spend because she spent them already earlier today. But we should, well, I'll take care of that after we finish the scene. So they're sort of sitting around, sort of like carrying on, talking to each other, trying to figure out what to do. I mean, they're kind of upset because I think they've lost quite a bit of their gear. That's been flung around by the storm in the oasis, and it could be who knows where. And as they're sort of doing that and they're resting, I think that Azaki shows up with some of his house guard. And to interpret the scene events that we got is that in opposition to the rumors about these two and their history as research sort of disgraced academics, I think we learned that Azaki feels compelled that, you know, they did the job, right? The storm is clearly moving away. They stopped it from hitting the plantation. Like, they would have seen, like, they definitely would have seen the storm coming their way and saw that these guys stopped it and redirected it and moved it away. So I think he's very happy with the circumstances. And he'll give them pay and sort of a pat on the back. Their pay is not very much because it only took a day. So they each get 4 gold coins, which is it. That's all. So I'll go ahead and put this down here. Actually, I'm going to keep most of the... So Ott got paid for her time, but Leah also got 4 gold coins. So she has 11 gold now. And I think the way we're going to interpret this, so this thread comes to an end. Azaki congratulates them, pays them, and then heads back off the plantation. There's not much else to say there. I think that this so on the left here we have the hex map, and I think this monster, right? Our monster here. I don't have it written down. But our Myrmidon is no longer here. Instead, I think this Myrmidon is going to move down to here. So I think that's what we're going to make that. So we're going to make that the corrupted Myrmidon. So that's the relocated corrupted Myrmidon. So it's moved south. That's the direction the storm has moved. So I'm gonna add us a new thread. I think that new thread. So we lost all these, right? So we did this. Oh no, that's right. He hired us for 8 days, so I guess he'll pay us that full amount. So 7 by 4, so 28 more gold. Actually, we got paid a bunch. Oh no, I'm remembering that incorrectly. I think that was supposed to be split, right? Split between the two of us. It's only 2 apiece. No, it's 4 each. Right? No, it's supposed to be split. It should be only 2. So 6 times 2, so another 12. And she would have 23 gold. Which still good. Alright, so yeah, let's review our threads. So that thread is done. But it's gonna be replaced with Omer. So I don't think Omer's gonna let this go. I think Omer still wants to tag the corrupted Myrmidon. I got this in here for further tracking and research. And I think it's natural that he's going to want Leonot's help with that. I think that makes sense. Let's see. Other threads. Right, we do have the thing with the foreign occupation. That's gonna be the next thing. So I think for now, it's already like many hours have gone by. So I think it's certainly in the afternoon at this point, for sure. We're in the afternoon now, and I think Izaki's gonna invite them to stay over the night rather than, because I mean they're wet and clearly tired and beat up. So I think he's going to invite the adventurers into his home to sort of spend the night. I'll feed them and do those sorts of things, which is unfortunate because they already paid for room and board back over at the Oasis, but it is what it is. So I think they're going to take that, and then we'll discuss a little bit about the other stuff that's going on with Izaki. We'll discuss what Omer wants to do next. And then we're going to discuss the gear. Actually, we'll do the gear first. So when we get back, let's see. We've got this. So we can kind of knock all this out real quick. This guy's gone. So what we're going to do now is we're gonna put gear question mark. Izaki's task. Omer's request. And we're gonna talk about Harold. Finally. Alright, so those are the things we're gonna do next. I'm gonna take a short break. Let me refill up my drink and use the bathroom, and I'll be back in just a little bit. Thanks for hanging out. If you guys have any questions, I'll hop back in. I'll answer those things in the chat. And I've missed them. Yeah. So we'll figure out that stuff real quick. But I'm gonna use the bathroom, get a drink. I'll be back in just a couple minutes. So hang tight. Alright, and I'm back. Thanks for sticking around. Yeah, so we're gonna clean up some stuff. Probably not gonna stream too much longer. Maybe another hour at most. Just sort of we can kind of clean up this session, figure out what we're gonna do for the next session, so that we'll have a pointed thing to do. We'll know where we're picking up from. So how is everybody today? You guys still doing well? Happy Easter if you are celebrating Easter. Thanks for spending it with me. Let's see. Hopefully you guys are having a good weekend. I saw the D&D movie yesterday, and it was good. That's sort of my takeaway from it. It was an okay sort of action adventure movie, very much sort of a Guardians of the Galaxy light is kind of what I would describe it, as far as like the type of movie it is. So it's overall, I think it was an okay movie. I think for a D&D movie, it was really good. I think it's what people primarily wanted out of D&D. I think maybe it could have. I think it could have focused a little bit more on the creatures, like the fun D&D creatures and monsters that are out there, and those sorts of adventures. Instead, the drama aspect of the dramatic tension of the movie is very much human-centric, or at least, humanoid-centric. So, right, they spent all this time to do the cool CG monsters, and most of them were kind of throwaways for the most part. Weren't really super integral to the plot. But overall, it was good. It's funny. I think it was like I said, it's an okay movie. It definitely is not. It's definitely not a great movie, but it's a good movie. But it's a great D&D movie. So if you enjoy D&D and you want to see that stuff sort of on the big screen, I definitely recommend it. I thought it's really good from that aspect. There's a bunch of little Easter eggs in there, including stuff from like the D&D cartoon from the 80s and all sorts of fun little stuff. But yeah, that's sort of what I've got going on. I'll finish up streaming today and just kind of hang out, I think, before I head back into the old grind on Monday, holding down a real job. Let's see, played some D&D over the weekend. That was fun. We're spinning up a new campaign with one group, and so we did sort of a 0.5 session, and that was a lot of fun. Kind of doing. We had already sort of figured out the characters, and now sort of getting the characters tied into the plot. That was a lot of fun. And just finished up an adventure in my other group, because I play with 2 weekly groups. And in the other group, we just finished up an adventure. We were actually going through, looking over here because it's on my bookshelf. We're basically playing through all of the adventures in Tales from the Yawning Portal, and we just finished up the Hidden Shrine of Tomoe-chan. It was a lot of fun. We basically went on that adventure to cure our cursed dog, and we did that. So that was really great. And the adventure before that, our dog had gotten hit by, is it a ghast? Or a specter? Some sort of undead creature that ages creatures. And our dog got hit. One of our sidekicks, and got aged real bad. And so that became sort of a priority task. In addition to being sort of hunted by assassins for other reasons that are not related to the dog. But yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun. Hopefully you guys are having a good time too. Let's see, is there anything else that we need to talk about before I jump back in? So again, if you guys haven't hit the follow button, haven't subscribed, go ahead and do that. I'd love to see you. And you guys will get notifications of the different streams that I do. Like I said, I do this sort of solo RPG stream every Sunday. And then sometimes on evenings during the week, I'll do sort of impromptu streams. And so the best way to sort of get notified by that is either being a follower on Twitch and getting those notifications, or following me on Twitter, because I always try to shoot out a notification, shoot out a tweet that I'm about to stream. So those 2 ways are probably the best to get that. If you're looking for more information about D&D and that sort of stuff, I'd say check out the website that's below, redraggedfiend.com. Got a blog, I've been working on that for over a decade. So lots of good insight in there. It's very, very DM forward with the advice, but there's stuff in there for people who are just players too. And if you're a player who is maybe interested in DMing, I think it's a good resource for you too. And I think everybody should try DMing. It's a lot of fun. It's just a different type of fun than playing a character. And I think I did a post specifically about how to do D&D 5e as a solo RPG, and I think it bridges this sort of play style. Does a really great job of bridging that gap between being only a player in D&D and running games of D&D. And I think this sort of sits in the middle there, because you kind of have to play both roles. So you're right. Like I got this little sheet. This was our corrupted Myrmidon. That I wrote down his stats, so I had to make up this custom monster because a water Myrmidon's like a CR8 creature or something like that. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to handle that, though it's the monster that probably makes the most sense for our little adventure. So I took that and I just kind of scaled it down so it would be still a very viable threat, but it was something we'd be able to handle. And that's the sort of thing that you get to do as DM. You can set up encounters, being able to sort of improvise with scenes and stuff like that. So very, very similar skill sets. And it's just a lot of fun. I mean, hopefully you guys are having fun. I'm having a blast with these solo characters. This last encounter with the elemental did not go as I thought it would. I thought for sure they were going to get smoked by it. And then we got the calm emotions scroll, and I was like, oh, all right, this is over in one. And then Leah couldn't roll to save her life, and so we had to chase the thing down, and then we ended up missing it with the scroll, and resolving it. It ended up a lot more messy than I thought it would ever be, which is fine. I love it. I mean, I could have fudged some of those rolls to make it a more narratively pleasing thing, but right, I want to be surprised as much as you want to be surprised by the story. That's one of the big things about doing solo RPGs. That's why we have the GM emulator and the roll tables. Is so, right, otherwise I'd just write a story. I don't want to write a story, I want to sort of experience the adventure as it grows. So thanks for coming along with me on that ride. And I think that's all we got to talk about right now. So let's go ahead and hop back in, because the main thing we've got to do right now, this first thing that we've got to do, let me switch over. There we go. Alright, so the first thing we've got to do now, specifically, is find out how much of our gear got lost in the water. Now, ideally everything's would be in their pack, so shouldn't have gone just spread all over the place, but let's try to figure that out. We don't need to worry about Omer's gear, because he's an off-screen NPC for most of the time, right? He's not part of our party. We need to know about our party's gear. Okay. So let's look at Leah's gear. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna roll for each of these things, and if I roll, I guess, under a 5, I'm just gonna roll d20s. If I roll under a 5, then we've lost that item to the water. Alright, so we're just gonna go down. So our staff. Our staff is fine. Our scroll case, fine. We had some paper. Let's see if the paper's okay. Paper's alright. I mean, it's not going to be neat, right? It's going to be dried out wet paper, which isn't great. But it's serviceable. Ink. Oh, so we lost our bottle of ink. That makes the paper a little useless. Or quill. Quill's fine. Penknife. Yep. Sealing wax. Yep. Oh, we have that letter from our dead colleague. We have Harold's letter. Did we lose Harold's letter? That would be not great. It's kind of a key item for one of our quests. Oh, good. No, we didn't lose that. She was wearing her clothes, so she obviously didn't lose those. Did she lose her coin pouch? No. Thank goodness. Extra water skin. No. Do I want to roll through everything in the Explorer's pack? It seems very clear here that Leah kept most of her gear. So I'm not going to worry too much about that. Some of those other mundane gear, because a lot of that's going to be doubled up with the Ott's gear anyways. So, more importantly, let's find out if she kept the teapot and the silent alarm. Horn. Oh, good. Her teapot. She has that still. She would be very upset if she lost that item. That's a sort of an heirloom item from her mother and stepfather. She'd be very upset if she lost that. Again, if you want to understand sort of like those backstory elements, go ahead and check out specifically episode 2, where we made the characters, where we drafted up Leah, and you can get the backstory on her family and all that stuff. I went over some of that actually in the last episode too, because I wrote it out in full. So if you wanted to see sort of the narrative example of it, if you just want to catch up on that part, you can watch the very beginning of session 3 where I read through that. And the Horn of Silent Alarm. Okay, good. She kept that. So luckily she kept most of her gear. And I guess we can roll for rations. Important. Okay, yeah, she kept the rations. Very good. So she kept most of her things. So we know that we know that Ott kept her spear and longbow because we used it in the scene afterwards, right in the actual fight. So we're not gonna roll for those. And she was wearing her armor. And then those last things are things that are included in the explorer's kit. So let's see if she has that. If she lost her backpack, she's probably gonna have lost everything. Nope. She kept the backpack. Bedroll. Yep. Rope. Yep. Oh, but she lost her tinderbox. That's fine. Not too big of a deal. Did she lose her water skin? No. And we know she has arrows. Did she lose her torches? No. Alright, we did end the scene. So you'll probably see... Well, I think I'm covering it up. Let me move that so you guys can see it. It's over here. So if you can see... Is it clear now? Yeah. So you'll see over here that I have these numbers, and I had rations over on Leah's page. I'm using, to track resources, I'm using a die system that kind of ticks down. So every time that Ott shoots 2 or more arrows in a combat, she's not considered to be conserving ammunition. So she has to roll a 1d6. If she rolls a 1, it goes down to a 1d4. And this sort of represents how many arrows she has and she's able to reclaim after battle. If she rolls a 1 on a 1d4, she has a single arrow left. And that's just done to sort of, rather than just sort of using tick marks or check boxes or anything like that to sort of track resources that way, instead using it a roll way, and then that makes sense. It helps us sort of abstract resource management for like, oh, you lost some arrows doing something, and you did this and this and this. So it's also not super clear how much of a resource you necessarily have, because there's other ways to lose resources other than using them, which is one of the things that I want to make sure is included. Right, she could have been in the water and lost some arrows, so let's roll a d6 and see if she lost any arrows. She did indeed. I rolled a 1. So she has 1d4 arrows. What about torches? Her torches are fine, but they're probably waterlogged right now, so they're probably not very useful for making fire. Those are going to need to dry out before we can use those. But yeah, that's sort of where we are, at least for the moment. Excellent. So they are going to, so we got our gear done. What's this list? So we've got our gear. And I think they rest, right? They have an opportunity to rest and get changed and have a bath if they wanted. And as sort of Azaki leads them back to the plantation, right, it's got a very sort of southern U.S. antebellum plantation style house, so it's a massive house, right? Just sort of encircled by these gigantic rice paddies and lots of people working on them. We know from the last session they are just finishing digging the irrigation ditches, and they're getting ready to plant. And as we come in, you know, Azaki's definitely giving out the order to his 4 people to start the planting, that the threat of the storm is gone and they should start planting immediately. So that's what they will kind of spend their afternoon doing, is prepping for the spring planting. And he will take them sort of into the house. They have an opportunity. He lends them some clothes so they can get changed and have their clothes laundered and take a bath. And then they sort of meet Azaki. The weather's really nice now that the persistent storm is gone. We have that up here, right? We have clear skies, average weather, calm winds. It's pretty early in the spring, so it's not super warm. It's probably in like the 60s. So I think they have clothes, but it's comfortable enough that I think they will take their dinner sort of outside on the lawn. And so there's a big sort of table that's set up with Azaki and some of his people, and the three of them are invited to dine with him. He congratulates them again, thank you for your hard work, and make sure that they get paid their amount in full. Remember that they had 8 days to take care of this task. Like, that was it, and they took care of it in one. Really, in less than a day. So I think Azaki is particularly impressed with Leah and Ott, because the way that we kind of set it up is that Omer's kind of been working on this for a while, and he's been waiting on that equipment to get there, and Azaki wasn't super happy with him about not making any progress towards the goal, which was, getting the storm to go away. But then, he brings in these other people to help him, and it's immediately taken care of, and I think he is pleased as punch. They think he's very happy. They have a nice, wonderful meal. And he talks about them, we'll go ahead and do this a little bit first person with Azaki. You seem like very competent people. It's my understanding that from Omer, that you showed up today, and you were able to deal with this threat that has been plaguing us for weeks. And for that, I applaud you. You are clearly very capable people, and I wonder if you were interested in earning some more coin, because I have another job that may be helpful for you. Especially for your companion. And he kind of mentions Odd and kind of like locks eyes with her. We have there's been a little bit of unrest around here lately, and we're gonna line up our newest thread, which is this one down here that we knew was already going on. We've lined up sort of some unrest that's been happening. There's a group of foreign occupiers who have taken up an entrenched camp on the southern coast of the oasis. They have been demanding a good portion of our rice stores to feed them. Now, obviously, as a businessman, that puts me in a little bit of a bind. Not allowing me to sell my goods for market price, and I'm not sure how much coin they have. I can tell you just from historical point of view is that when armies are no longer able to pay for their food and supplies, they simply take it. Now, he sort of like points to his house and like the surrounding fields. I've done very well for myself, worked very, very hard to make something of this place. And there are a lot of people who rely on me to ensure that they have a place to live, that they have food on their table and a job. And this group of, we say soldiers, but honestly, they're probably little more than bandits. These bandits threaten the fabric of our existence. Now, you seem capable folks. You did battle with the raging elements of nature and came out unscathed. Would you be willing to take on a job in which we can resolve sort of this tension before it boils over and does more harm to our community? And I think the response to that from the group, I think Omer's definitely out, right? That's not Omer's thing. He's not here. He's not here to swing swords, right? He's a researcher. He's very interested in the Myrmidon still, right? His contract is fulfilled. He's not going to renew it to chase off invaders. That's not his thing. So he's very much out. Ott, I think, is probably the most interested. I think from her adventuring sort of background, she's a capable fighter. She's an intimidating presence for sure. As sort of a 7-foot gnoll, like hyena person. Like, she's massive and scary. And she has weapons and she knows how to use them. So it comes down to Leah. And Leah is not very interested in this arrangement. So if you look down here, and let me highlight this real quick so you guys can see it. One of the things we learned up through her backstory is that Leah has sworn off adventuring based off of things that had happened to her when she was a hireling. So she's not very interested in being an adventurer. Right, out of game, right? We know this. Leah's very much a reluctant adventurer. She doesn't really want to do this, right? She's an academic at heart. She really wants to be researching and doing studies and making discoveries. But that path has been cut off from her, and she tried the adventuring thing, and it went very poorly. And her history with conflict has not been great. Those of you who have watched sort of the previous streams know that she has a very, very ugly scar that's like from her cheek down across her lip and her chin that she got from basically fighting in the war. So she wasn't supposed to be in sort of like active combat, so she has a lot of actually kind of bad experience with this. So she's very unmotivated to do this. Also, like, she's here for a reason, and that reason is not to help out Izaki. She doesn't care about Izaki. So I think that Leah politely declines. Tells her that she came specifically to this area to talk to Omer about a different issue that she's already working on. And I think Izaki takes that and he tries to sweeten the pot some. He knows that these people are capable. He knows that the only other people that he could potentially go to for something like this is Norkruth or caravan guards, and they're not the greatest people, and they're not super loyal or trustworthy, either of them. So I don't think that he has the opportunity to use people who solve problems. They've proven that they solve problems, and he wants to use them. So I think he will sweeten the pot. I think that he tells Leah that if you would take on this mission, I will put the full of my resources into you and Omer's mission. In the objectives that you are trying to do. I will help bankroll that and support it in what ways I can through my connections, both here with traders and other cities. I can be very influential, very helpful for you, if you will help me resolve this problem. Now the question is does that convince them? I think that may convince Omer, though again, Omer's not really one of our PCs or sidekicks, so we don't really care what Omer thinks, beyond learning more information about him and what he knows about Harold, our dead librarian. So I can give him just a flat 1d20 roll. Basically, I'm going to make these charisma saves, and they're going to have to save to say no. I mean, Ott doesn't have to. She's on board. She's cool. She's cool with it. And she's looking for a new job because she just finished her job. So let's do Omer first. And let's set a DC. Izaki's a pretty persuasive guy. He's got a bit of money. Like, he's not a billionaire, but as far like he's he's sort of the king of, he's big man on campus as far as his local area is concerned. And he makes money. Like, the plantation does well. And he knows a lot of people through his trading network. So let's set that DC. Alright. It's a DC 14 charisma saving throw. So for Omer. Yep, Omer fails. Omer's like, yeah, that sounds like a really great idea. I'd love to get my entire research bank rolled. Thanks. Alright, Leah's got a +2 to her charisma save. Oh, but that 5 on the die. So I think Leah kind of sighs and kind of begrudgingly agrees. Because she understands that right now she's stonewalled at the academy, at Riverside Academy. Or Conservatory, sorry. Riverside Conservatory. She can't even get in the doors. She doesn't know if their research is still in the library, where Harold apparently hid it in the stack somewhere. They don't know what's going on with Harold, like being able to get into the conservatory and talk to people. Azaki maybe has enough influence, either by who he is or what he can pay to make that happen. Not to mention maybe help her track down some other of her old research team. So I think she begrudgingly agrees because she understands, and she, frankly, Leah's broke. She has 23 gold to her name, which is a lot for a commoner, right? That's almost a month's salary, right? For an average person. Like, she has walking around money, and she has a home she can go back to if things don't work out, right? She can always go back to her parents. But she doesn't, and she doesn't really want to adventure. Remember, she doesn't really want to do that. But she knows she spent most of her money to get her here, and then she's earned a little bit of that money back. Azaki has shown that he's willing to pay, right, for a job well done. And, right, they did an afternoon's work, or I guess a little bit more than that. Not quite a full day's work, and got paid basically a week's wage for it. Because that's what they had agreed to. He's clearly a guy that seems to keep his word. So I think she begrudgingly agrees. But she's like, I have no idea what I'm going to tell these people. But Leah also needs to... Frankly, Leah needs to level up. Is frankly what needs to happen. And we need to take some time to do that, I think. And she still needs to talk to Omer about Harold. And Omer's going to want her help with the corrupted Myrmidon. Right. Okay. So we're going to have to build in some time. I think to do the level up to make it make sense in the world. One of the things that I hate, especially about 5e, is that, right, adventurers go from nothing to like level 5 in like a week. And that's just, it doesn't really make a lot of sense in world. So I think that they begrudgingly agree. There's some stipulations to that. First, they need to rest and recover. And I think Leah makes it very clear that she's going to need things to protect herself and the others, because she's not a warrior by trade. But she does have some knowledge, and she can get there. But she's going to need some very specific things. And I think Azaki can handle that for her. So we're going to do some downtime, I think, in the next one, in which we'll talk about sort of... We have some downtime, and I think I'm going to make it... because we hadn't really discussed how much downtime it takes to level up. And I think I'm just going to make it... a week, I think. So per level you're trying to achieve. So if you were trying to achieve level 1, you need a week of downtime. And I think in that, she's going to do some things that'll get her to, as we talked about previously, become a level 1 wizard. Okay. Yes. So yes, they begrudgingly agree. They decide to take the time. I think we're gonna send. So Leah has a very specific idea. She needs the level 1 wizard stuff. She needs the books. She needs to learn the spells. She needs to get that done. Like she's proven that she can cast spells, right? But it's difficult for her, so she needs a week to like focus on specifically how to cast spells successfully every time you want to cast a spell. So she's going to spend the week doing that. I think Omer lost probably most. Actually, let's roll a percentile. Let's see how much of Omer's equipment got lost when the boat tumped over in the oasis. Yeah, he lost almost exactly half of the gear. So I think he's going to spend the week sort of like trying to dredge the bottom of the oasis to recover what gear he can. And if not, they're going to have to probably order some more specific gear to deal with the elemental. I think during this time Ott's going to go on a reconnaissance mission, kind of figure out what the foreign occupation force is all about, what they're doing. I think that's sort of the group, and they're gonna be doing that stuff while Leah does her things. And so I think at that point, let's go ahead and level up Leah and make her that level 1 wizard. So let's do that. And everybody gets a long rest, so everybody gets all that stuff back. So she'll get her. We'll go up. Because we're going from level 0 to level 1, Ott's already a level 1, so we don't need to do anything with Ott. She was already on that side. And she has, as you can see, that she has sort of sleight of hand, stealth, survival, perception. She has athletics, acrobatics, animal handling. She has the skills to do this scouting mission, which she'll do on her own. And I think that while they're staying here, the question is, does Azaki put them up at the plantation or just maybe pay for their rooms at the caravanserai? I'm going to roll a 1d20. I don't really want an event or anything to happen, but I do think that it's very likely that he pays for them to stay at the trading post and not at his home. So +3. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so he mulls it over and decides that it'll be easier for them to go through the trading post, to trade at the market, to get the things they need staying in town, rather than staying across the oasis at his home. Not that he's like, you can't stay here. He's like, it would make more sense for you to stay over there, and I'll just pay for your rooms. And so I think they agree to that. So their room and board is paid. They have sort of that middling room to stay at Nansumber's. And we'll go ahead and level up Leah real quick. So let's go over here. So we want classes. Yeah, unfortunately I do not use D&D Beyond. I don't really live the business practices or the subscription model, and I just kind of enjoy building characters by hand. I think it helps you learn the system better and stay better in touch with the rules and how everything works, which is especially important if you want to like run games. As the DM, people are going to look at you to make rulings and know a bunch of rules, and I think it's just easier if you... Not that I have a particular dislike for D&D Beyond other than the business practices, which have kind of come out recently, but I think it just helps you stay more in tune with the game and what's going on in it, rather than taking shortcuts where it kind of does the work behind the scenes and you don't really know how numbers are become the numbers they are and why they are those numbers. But we want a wizard. All right, so we're gonna go up to level 1. So we're gonna get this arcane recovery and spellcasting. All right, so let's figure this out real quick. All right, so we've already got the hit points right. That's why we chose 1d6 hit points for Leah to start off with. So that's fine. So we don't have any of that, but we have. Give her other weapons. Not that they really matter that much for wizards. Dagger. I'm not gonna put dart. I never use darts. Sling. We already know she can use the staff. And light crossbow. Which goes on top of her. Right, being an elf, she can already use bows and swords. Alright, she gets to choose 2 skills. So she already has Arcana, she already has History. So we can do Insight, Investigation, Medicine, or Religion. I think Investigation makes sense, so we'll give her Investigation. And we got one more. Insight, Medicine, or Religion. Well, we already know she's not really a people person. It's not really Leah's super strong suit. She's somewhat charismatic. She has very sort of stately. She has a lot of presence, but she's not very good at reading or necessarily being very persuasive or deceptive. Which I think those sort of skills kind of play off Insight. I don't think Medicine makes very much sense. So that kind of leaves us with Religion. And I think that makes sense. But she's not a particularly religious person, I don't think. I just think that academically she's read a lot of religious resources and kind of understands the text from a purely academic standpoint. So I think she knows a lot about religion, and especially as you go further back in time, and religion is very sort of like intertwined with history and things of that nature. Like they're the people who are keeping records and are talking about the things that are going on and documenting things. So I think that makes sense. So she'll have religion as well. We're not going to give her starting equipment because she kind of already has starting equipment. Oh, actually, no, we should. So we'll give her a dagger. And she already has a staff, so we're not going to give her another staff. And that's going to be her arcane focus, is going to be the staff. She's already got a pack, so we're not going to worry about that. She's already got an explorer's pack. But she's going to pick up the spellbook. Come on, move. Cursor. Thank you. I'm covering that up. I'm going to move that so you can see it a little bit. Alright, so she'll have the spellbook. She will gain arcane recovery. Actually, let me just swap these. There we go. That way, we can see, you guys can see the full character sheet. You don't necessarily need to see this other stuff that I'm looking at. Great, so she'll get arcane recovery. Which gives us one half level rounded up, I think, right? Yeah. To ensure that at least a first level wizard can get back one spell slot. Alright, and we have a spell book which gives us 6 first level wizard spells. And we also get 3 cantrips, So we'll have 4 cantrips total. Because we already have one from being enough. We already have Firebolt. Alright, let's go ahead and set. Alright, so our spell. So we'll just do that spell. Change Firebolt. Spells, +5. Which means that our spell DC is 5 + 8, so it's 13. And we are a ritual caster. This up here. Alright, that's it. So we need to choose our. How many spell slots do we have? So we have 2 first level spells. Just put there. It'll tell us that we have 2 spell slots. Alright, so let's choose some spells. Sometimes the links don't quite work right. Alright, so we've got wizard cantrips. There are a bunch. Okay, what makes sense? What do we think makes sense for Leah to pick up? So she's already got one good attack cantrip. So I'm not sure if I need. Maybe I'll pick up one more just in case. Because right, fire, just they may be a little metagamey, but I feel like she wouldn't know that from studying elementals. That a lot of magic creatures have resistances, and one of the most common resistances is fire. So we probably want to choose something that doesn't do fire damage. So have one other sort of attack cantrip. We don't need that here because we're going to have it over there. Wolf cantrip. All right. So we're going to have Firebolt. I think it's technically 2 words. What else would Leah choose? Let's do our other attack cantrip right out the gate. Maybe Brand? I mean, we could do Toll the Dead. I'm not sure if she would use Toll the Dead, though. That doesn't seem like the sort of spell she would learn. Maybe Frostbite? Yeah, Frostbite's pretty good. Right? It poses disadvantage, which is always nice. And she's an elemental sort of person, so let's go ahead and do Frostbite. Frostbite, 60, right? Spray Frost, 60. Just slows it down. I can already slow people down, so I don't want to double up on that. Even though it could be funny to change somebody's speed to 20 in a round, or even 10. That'd be very fun. But I think it'll be more powerful to give them disadvantage on the attacks. Alright, and then maybe a couple of utility spells. For cantrips. Where's Message? Message is really good. feel like we need to take prestidigitation. Yeah, so let's do prestidigitation. I really like Mold Earth. Mold Earth or Minor Illusion? I'm going to do Mold Earth. She's a very elemental focused person, so I think that she would probably take Mold Earth over Minor Illusion. Alright, so those are our cantrips. We need 6 spells, first levels. Well, she has the Horn of Silent Alarm, so I don't think that she would take the alarm spell. I think she'd definitely take Comprehend Languages and Detect Magic. Being an academic sort of person. Those are both rituals, which is really good. Drop a little asterisk, give them a little star, so I know they're rituals. Ooh, Find Familiar is a real good one. I wish it was a scroll though. That's something we'll definitely buy as a scroll. Get Leah familiar. That'd be a lot of fun. So note to self, and we definitely don't have enough money to buy a first level scroll, as even though it's a first level scroll, I think is an uncommon magic. No, it's a common magic item. Let's see. Let's roll an oracle check to see if she can find. Like, there's a bunch of traders that come through the trading post. Let's see if she can find a scroll. Somebody selling a scroll of Find Familiar. Because I think if she can find a scroll of Find Familiar, she can maybe try to talk Izaki into buying it for her, so she'll have it. Sell him on sort of like the usefulness of having that. Okay. So we got a yes, right? Now, I didn't say that I was going to roll. So, because I rolled in the area in which we would perhaps get sort of an interrupt scene or something to go with it. Now, let's do that. We'll make this sort of like the nature of the familiar, maybe. Maybe that instead. So, this could be the nature of the familiar. Or, let's say that. Let's see if she can even convince Izaki to buy it for her. So she has a +2 to charisma. So let's see if she can roll decently. Oh, that's 17. I'm going to go ahead and say that's a yes, for sure. Alright, so let's figure out sort of the nature of this familiar, because I think it's rather than getting to choose the familiar, she just kind of buys whatever's on the market. So 10. Communicate. And 24. Ooh, communicate tension. So this is something, so whatever this creature is, it's somewhat off-putting, I think. It's sort of an off-putting familiar. And I am not super... It's been a long time since I played a character that had a familiar. So let's just look him up real quick. Maybe an imp? I mean, we could just give her an animal. But none of those are really communicate, what did we say? It communicates tension. I don't think any of those communicate tension necessarily. Maybe a spider? No, I think it would be a lot of fun to have a weasel as a companion, but I don't think that makes sense for Leah. I'm trying to think of... I mean, a raven's very classic. That feels very Leah. But I think maybe a sprite. Maybe I like that. I know technically those are for Pact of the Chain Warlocks, but I think... Or an imp. Devil Sight's really good. I mean, as far as sort of like making somebody uncomfortable, having an imp would be really good. Poison harvesting disguises damage mitigation. I can't even remember what the imps look like in 5e. Let's look at that. Look at images real quick. Oh yeah, a little devil dude. Yeah, I think that works. I think that very much communicates let's see, tension, right? Somebody walking around with like a little demon dude, and you're like, I don't know if I trust you. I don't know what you're getting up to. Yeah, alright, so she's gonna have the imp familiar. So I think, I mean, Leah's not a... I'll make an intelligence check, but Leah's not a... So I'm going to give her advantage, because Leah's not a dumb person. I think if she was going to be able to get the scroll, it's a first level spell, there's no reason she wouldn't copy that into her book to have it forever. Especially if she loses the familiar. Yeah, I mean, that's a 19 on the die. I'm not even worried about it. Okay, so she's going to have one extra spell. She's going to have that Find Familiar spell. Because I hate to take up like one of her main slots for a first level character off of what's a spell that's sometimes basically a one-time use spell. So she got Azaki to pay for it. It is also a ritual. So yeah, we'll put this over here. We'll put imp, and I'll figure out the stuff about the imp later. So she's imp familiar. I think that's much more unsettling than having like a cat, which is what we rolled for. Okay, so get those. Oh, goodbye. Disguise self? Probably not. Fog cloud? No. What does frost fingers do? It's basically burning hands, but cold. Right? Pretty sure. Burning hands, but cold. Ice knife is kind of a meh. You know, ice knife's not that bad. It's very yeah, I guess we should probably take mage armor. Mage armor and magic missile. Take the standards, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. And should have done mage armor first. So that puts us at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we need 2 more spells. Silver Barbs is a great spell, right? Certainly almost OP. I think we're gonna take Ice Knife because we haven't really done. We don't have a lot of elemental sort of flavor stuff. Chromatic art makes sense. So I'm going to take chromatic orb and I'm going to take chromatic orb and ice knife. Usually I try to take some more, when I'm playing a spellcaster, take some more utility stuff, but I'm going to say that because Leah, first of all, meta reasons, is that Leah at most is probably only ever going to have one other person with her, so she's going to need to be able to do significant attacking on her turn and control stuff. The other is that, right, she's learning spells specifically either to deal with an elemental or to deal with these foreign invaders. So it makes sense that she would take more attack spells than I might otherwise give a wizard. And we said ice knife. Perfect. Alright, so we've got those sort of lined up. Just leave those right there. That's it for her, I believe. And she is Wizard 1 now. I mean, I didn't even consider, I probably should have at least considered making her an Artificer. I don't think I've played an Artificer at 5e. But they're kind of a wonky class. And nothing in her background or anything talks about her being specifically a tinkerer or anything of that notion. As much as I think it would be for her to run around with a firearm and just shoot people. That'd be a lot of fun. And do sort of the magical tinkering stuff. She can already cast a spell out the gate. I think it makes more sense from her background and her area of study and her, ancestry and heritage to be a wizard rather than a artificer. Or artificer, however you want to say it. Thanks for the follow. Yeah, I think that's what makes the most sense. So I think that's what we're going to stay with. Before I get too far away, let me save her before I shut her out. Let's see. Grab my notes. And I think that's where I'm going to cut it off now before I get going too much further. Because I think these next sort of conversations are going to take some time and they're going to go out. So we know next time. What are we going to do next time? So we're going to talk about the downtime. Omar's gonna dredge Oasis. Where's Gear? And we talked about Ott gonna do her own little thing. We'll have to decide whether we want to actually follow Ott on that, or if we want to just let her do that off screen. I'll have to think about that a little bit. I tend to let sidekicks just do their own thing off screen, but it might be fun to sort of like follow her and see what she does in her little scouting mission. So this is sort of the things we're going to pick up on next time. Oh, and all right, we're still going to have Omer's going to have his request because he's going to want. He's still going to need help with the Myrmidon, and we still need to. Because we still haven't had that discussion about Harold yet. And there. So that's sort of the stuff we're going to pick up on next time. So I'll go ahead and we'll have this, and then I'm just going to go ahead and bump this out over here. All right, perfect. So yeah, that's what we're mainly gonna focus on next time, I think. I was really hoping that we'd get to a very more specific thing, but I think that's what we'll do with Ott maybe next time. Is we'll follow Ott as she goes on her little solo reconnaissance mission. She tries to scout things, and then we'll talk about sort of like the specifics of what Leah does down in her downtime. And then we'll figure out the discussion she needs to have with Omer about the Myrmidon and about their research, and sort of because that's sort of the major thread. We're just kind of doing side content right now, just because we have other stuff going on in this local area, and that most of what's happening with Harold and that research is not going to be local. They're going to have to go back to the conservatory or use somebody else. They may try to track down another one of their old teammates, and find out what they know. But that'll pretty much be our setup for what we're going to do next time. Kind of figure out what that's going to be. Let's see. What else do we need? Is there anything else that we need to talk to? No, not really. That's everything. You know, hey, thanks for coming along and checking things out. I hope you guys have as much fun with this stuff as I do. I thought it was a fun time. I really enjoyed sort of the way that everything worked out with the elemental Myrmidon. It wasn't what I was expecting, but it turned out to be fun nonetheless, and it's turned and shifted and become its own thing, and Omer's going to continue to go after that, so we'll have to find out what goes on with that. I really can't wait to see what happens next. Thank you guys for showing up, for jumping in the chat, for talking. We'll talk about this again. If you're following, you'll get notifications if I have a chance to go live later on in the week, maybe in one of the evenings. We'll be doing something other than this solo thing. We'll be talking about I don't know, maybe some of the stuff from my personal DM binder. Might do some work on the region hex mapping stuff that I've been working on for the blog. Or maybe something totally different. Maybe we'll make a dungeon. I worked on some dungeon creation stuff last week, and that was a lot of fun. So I might do that again. Let's see. If you're interested in learning more stuff about me, obviously you can follow me on Twitch or on Twitter. At Red Ragged Fiend, both those things. You can check out the blog. Blog's got a ton of information, all sorts of goodies for you there. If you're looking for more goodies for you to download and keep for yourself, you can check out Drive Through RPG. I have a whole bunch of that stuff. And you can pick up that stuff. I use some of it here. I have, if you were wondering, you probably not because it's such a minor footnote, but I have a calendar that talks about sort of what the commoners are kind of doing throughout the year, because most of them are farmers or farm laborers. So that's why I know that at this time in the spring that Asaki's plantation is planting their spring crops, because I have that whole calendar made up. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, you can grab that from the Drive Through RPG store. Everything's pay what you want, so you can download it for free if you want it, or if you feel like adding a few dollars to my pockets, that's perfectly great. I totally appreciate that. That helps me stay motivated to keep doing this stuff and keep doing the streams and all that good stuff. And most of the money that I get from that goes into buying more RPG stuff for myself that I can, create and use and share back with you guys. So that's always super appreciative. It's not like I'm using it to go on fabulous vacations or anything like that. yeah, that's about it. Thanks for stopping by. It's been a whole bunch of fun. I'm really glad that we're really getting into it with Leah and Ott. Ott's still hanging around. We'll see if she hangs around forever. There may be a point in which Ott sort of walks into the background, and maybe we'll get a new sidekick or somebody different. That person could be Omer, probably not. I don't think Omer would make for a good adventure sidekick. And we'll see how everything that's happening in Leia's life kind of butts up with her sort of apprehensiveness to go adventuring again based off of her past. So we're gonna see how she deals with that, what she does, see if that hurts her or helps her based off of her previous experiences, and all sorts of fun. But all that stuff is going to be things that we figure out next week and the weeks after. So thanks again for showing up, everybody, and I had a lot of fun. I hope you guys had a lot of fun, and I will see you again soon. Bye, guys.